It all started with what everyone thought was just a harmless joke. Picture this: a glamorous charity gala, champagne glasses clinking, guests gossiping about art and jewels. Then, out of nowhere, an art dealer from Geneva casually drops a bomb. He mentions a rare tiara of British royal origin that had just surfaced in Monaco. Most people in the room laughed it off. Fake imitations pop up all the time, right? But not everyone was laughing, because a few sharp-eyed guests instantly knew that very tiara, or something disturbingly close to it, was supposed to be locked up safe in the Queen Mother's vault. And that's when whispers began. What started as a passing remark quickly snowballed into a full-blown mystery. Within a week, palace staff were frantically digging through old archives, flipping through dusty banquet photos, checking museum registries. At first, it was framed as simple curiosity, but then the list started to grow. A sapphire brooch, a pearl choker, a diamond snuff box, all of them cataloged as secure, yet nowhere to be found physically. The excuses, always the same. Oh, it's out for restoration, or that one's on loan for an exhibition. Convenient little answers, until the missing items became too many to ignore. And let's be real, royal jewels don't just vanish. These are not trinkets you lose behind a sofa cushion. We're talking heirlooms worn at coronations, pieces that have survived centuries, guarded behind vaults with security tighter than most world leaders. For several to suddenly be unaccounted for, that sent icy chills through the palace halls. That's when Prince William quietly made a move. Behind the glittering facade of royal life, he brought in a man very few outside elite circles know. Simon Harcourt, ex-intelligence, allergic to media, the kind of man you hire when you need a scandal buried or a secret uncovered. Harcourt worked in silence, weaving through auction house records in Paris, Geneva, Dubai, places where the wealthy buy and sell treasures like poker chips. Weeks passed before the pattern emerged, an 1800s diamond necklace with a mysterious European origin, a sapphire ring strangely familiar, a brooch described just vaguely enough, yet matching Queen Victoria's beloved piece. It was all too neat. Same couriers, same shell companies, same slick brokers. Whoever was behind this wasn't fumbling around. They were experienced. But the million-dollar question loomed. How on earth did these jewels leave the palace without anyone noticing? Then came the breakthrough. Harcourt tracked down a retired appraiser in Antwerp who, after a little pressure, admitted he had quietly evaluated 3 distinct royal-looking pieces. Paid in cash, no questions asked. But the detail that froze everyone's blood? The mysterious woman arranging it all. Impeccably dressed, fluent in French, sharp British accent, calm, smooth, untouchable. That was the crack in the dam, because whoever this woman was, she wasn't just anyone. She had access, authority, the ability to glide effortlessly between the worlds of royalty and high society collectors. And that's when the trail led to a name the palace hadn't dared whisper in years: Charles Everleigh. Once a trusted man with direct access to the royal vault, Everleigh had slipped away under vague circumstances and re-emerged running a luxury consultancy, basically a discreet middleman for heritage treasures. He was charming, polished, and far too clever. Harcourt posed as a buyer's rep seeking a historically significant tiara. The meeting happened in an exclusive Mayfair club, the kind of place where waiters never ask your name and conversations vanish into the wood-paneled walls. Everleigh was smooth, spinning tales about royal pieces, estate transfers, and anonymous acquisitions. But the second Harcourt casually mentioned a sapphire ring matching the Queen Mother's collection, Everleigh's mask flickered. He didn't flinch, but his polished confidence dulled. His words became guarded. That was all Harcourt needed. Back at his desk, he dug into Everleigh's travel logs. And there it was. Repeated trips to Monaco, Geneva, Paris, all lining up perfectly with questionable auctions. But then came the kicker. On 2 occasions, Everleigh had traveled with a companion, a woman shielded under diplomatic clearance. No official name, just protected. And that narrowed the suspects to one chilling conclusion. The final confirmation came from an auction contact who remembered a certain handoff in Paris. A sapphire diamond brooch delivered in a velvet box by a British woman. Elegant, deliberate, guarded by subtle security. She even slipped off her gloves with that slow, rehearsed grace only royals seem to master. That haunting image stuck, because it wasn't just some woman. It was someone bred in palaces, trained in dignity. Simon Harcourt's dossier was undeniable, every link airtight, and when it landed on Prince William's desk, the truth was clear. The mysterious woman, Queen Camilla. Part 2. Imagine William's shock. It wasn't just about jewels anymore. These weren't baubles. They were living history worn by queens representing centuries of heritage. And someone at the very top, his own stepmother, was allegedly selling them off to private collectors as if they were stock trades. When William sat across from Camilla in a private Buckingham room, it wasn't a son confronting a stepmother, it was the future king facing betrayal. He slid the dossier across the table. She didn't even glance at it. She simply locked eyes with him. And in that silence, William realized the truth. She didn't need to read it. She already knew what it contained. Behind palace doors, the storm grew. The press caught faint whiffs, canceled appearances, Camilla's sudden absences, whispers of health reasons. But inside, the hammer was falling. telling. William drafted a statement with military precision. No names, no direct accusations. But every word screamed its message. Queen Camilla's royal duties were reassigned, her title as Queen Consort removed, effective immediately. When William walked up to the podium, cameras flashing like lightning, he didn't tremble. His voice was steady, clipped, loaded with unspoken fire. He spoke of duty, legacy, trust. He never uttered Camilla's name, but everyone knew. The press exploded. Global headlines screamed royal earthquake, Camilla out. Social media lit up in chaos. Some outrage, some cheering. Analysts dissected William's every pause, every subtle emphasis. And Camilla, hours earlier, she'd already slipped out of the palace in a single black car. No entourage, no press, just gone. Inside the palace, it was as though her presence had been erased overnight. Portraits featuring her quietly removed, event programs edited, invitations reprinted. Her name vanished like a ghost, but the wound was deeper than her absence. Security protocols around the vaults were overhauled, every heirloom recatalogued. No one, not even senior royals, could touch a piece of jewelry without new layers of oversight. The monarchy itself was recalibrating, scarred by betrayal. Public opinion split sharply. To some, William's move was bold, necessary. Proof that the next generation valued integrity over blind loyalty. To others it felt cold, ruthless, a family matter cruelly exposed. But one truth echoed louder than the chatter. For the first time in modern history, the monarchy had exiled one of its own. The investigator, Simon Harcourt, slipped back into anonymity. No interviews, no acknowledgements. His role was done. But in hushed royal circles, his work was quietly revered. For William, though, the decision was seismic. It was never about diamonds or brooches. It was about what those jewels symbolized. History, continuity, the invisible thread binding monarchs to their people. Losing them wasn't just theft, it was erasure. And so, William drew a line in the sand. No matter how high your rank, no one is untouchable. Titles can be stripped, trust can be shattered, and legacy must always come first. When that dossier landed on William's desk, he didn't rip it open in a rush like some cheap scandal rag. No, he just stared at it, because deep down he knew exactly what it meant. This wasn't just a family drama, this was the monarchy's soul on the line. These weren't shiny trinkets you'd pawn off in a back alley. These were the jewels that had been kissed by history. Crowns that glittered at coronations, brooches pinned during declarations, heirlooms worn by queens whose faces were now frozen in portraits, and someone, his stepmother, Queen Camilla, had been siphoning them away, quietly turning royal legacy into private profit. The confrontation was brutal in its simplicity. William didn't scream, didn't throw accusations. He chose silence, precision, a private room in Buckingham Palace, just the two of them. When Camilla walked in, her posture was flawless. That same regal air she'd worn since day one. She sat like it was a regular meeting, as though nothing was amiss. Then came the moment. William slid the dossier across the polished table. His eyes never left hers. "Read it," his expression said, but she didn't even glance down. She just stared back, calm, deliberate. And in that icy silence, William's stomach twisted. She didn't need to see it, she already knew. That was the confirmation. Outside, the rain tapped against the palace windows, a gentle rhythm masking the storm inside. To the world, everything looked normal. But behind those gilded doors, history was being rewritten. The press only had scraps. Rumors of Camilla's sudden absences, her canceled appearances, whispers about fatigue or ill health. But the truth was far darker. By morning, the monarchy's response was sharpened into words with the edge of a blade. A press statement drafted line by line, every syllable weighed like gold. No names mentioned, no finger pointing, but its meaning was undeniable. Queen Camilla's royal duties were reassigned. Her title as Queen Consort, gone. Effective immediately. When William finally walked into the press room, cameras firing like gunshots, he was the very picture of calm. Not a twitch, not a stumble. His speech lasted barely 5 minutes, but it detonated like a bomb. He spoke of responsibility, of legacy, of the sacred trust between the crown and its people. He never said her name, he didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly who he meant. The aftermath was chaos. Global headlines screamed of a royal earthquake. Social media split into factions, some furious, some gleeful, some in stunned disbelief. Analysts dissected William's words like scripture, pointing out what he did say, but more importantly, what he deliberately left unsaid. And Camilla? She was already gone. Hours before the announcement, she'd slipped out of the palace in a single black car. No entourage, no cameras, no waves to the crowd, just a quiet exit through a side gate, vanishing like a ghost. Where she went, no one knows, not officially. But inside the palace, the erasure was swift. Portraits featuring her quietly removed from certain galleries, event programs hastily edited, invitations reprinted. Her name, once etched into every royal schedule, faded overnight. It was as though the monarchy itself was cauterizing a wound, trying to heal from a betrayal too deep to ignore. more, and William wasn't stopping there. Security protocols around the royal vaults were torn apart and rebuilt from scratch. Every heirloom recatalogued, new clearance levels locked into place. From that day on, not even the most senior royals could move a single jewel without oversight. Trust had been shattered, and trust would not be blind again. The public reaction, explosive. Half the nation hailed William's decision as bold, necessary, proof that the next generation of royals would not compromise integrity for tradition. To them, this was the moment a future king showed he was willing to put principle before family. But others called it ruthless, cold. They argued that the scandal should have been handled quietly, behind closed doors. That stripping Camilla so publicly was an act of humiliation, a wound to the monarchy's image. Yet no one, not even the harshest critics, could deny the scale of what had just happened. For the first time in living memory, the monarchy had cut out one of its own under the gaze of the entire world. As for Simon Hardcourt, the quiet investigator who pieced this puzzle together, his name never appeared in official documents. He turned down every interview request, retreating back into the shadows where he'd come from. But within royal walls, he was quietly thanked, quietly dismissed. His work was complete. And for William, this wasn't just about jewels. It was never about jewels. It was about what they represented: continuity, legacy, the invisible thread tying present to past. To lose them was more than theft. It was erasure. So William drew his line in the sand. The crown was bigger than any single individual. Titles could be stripped, trust could be broken, and no matter how high you stand, no one is above the legacy they are sworn to protect. That was the message. That was the thunderclap that shook the world. Thunderclap that shook the world.